What if the foods you love the most aren't exactly what you think they are? From sizzling sausages on a grill to smooth mozzarella gently melting on a pizza, certain factory processes might leave you shocked or even a little uneasy. There's a whole hidden world behind those tidy packaging labels, filled with hush-hush shortcuts, eyebrow-raising storage methods, and perplexing additives that never make it onto the ingredient list. Our journey begins at the doorstep of the meat industry, but we're not stopping there. We'll drift from secret spice labs into the realm of controversial casings, then into the smoky chambers that transform bland cuts into mouth-watering smoked delicacies. And just when you think dairy is pure and wholesome, wait until you see what really happens on massive factory farms, where automated milking lines churn out rivers of milk and wheels of cheese at lightning speed, sometimes leaving animal welfare concerns behind. By the end, you'll have plenty to consider before you take your next bite or sip. So fasten your seatbelt and prepare for a deep dive into the untold stories behind some of our favorite foods. Together, we'll examine how quality, convenience, and cost collide in factory settings. You might not look at a burger, a slice of cheese, or a popsicle the same way again. For many people, fresh meat conjures up images of a local butcher selecting prime cuts each morning, carefully wrapping them in plain paper. Yet reality in large-scale operations often looks nothing like that romantic vision. Factories churn out products by the ton, and a huge portion of what's labeled fresh or just processed might have spent weeks or even months being stored in giant freezers or climate-controlled warehouses. Allegedly, large companies use these stockpiles to meet demand without slowing down production, rotating in older cuts whenever needed. Some industry insiders claim that these storage periods can even overlap with questionable practices. There are rumors that some facilities mix older trimmings with newly ground meat, creating an illusion of freshness while stretching out production. The idea is simple. Keep a base of older meat in deep freeze, thaw it in controlled increments, and blend it with fresh supplies until it becomes unrecognizable as something that spent half a year sitting in a warehouse. It doesn't sound very appetizing, yet it's a cost-efficient method in a market driven by profit margins. Publicly, factory representatives dismiss these rumors as isolated incidents or misunderstandings. But there have been multiple investigative reports about so-called rework practices. Rework involves taking unsold or unshipped batches and reintroducing them to the production line. Many argue that while it's not technically illegal, provided the meat is kept under certain temperature guidelines, it's ethically murky to call something fresh if part of the blend dates back a while. In these vast processing plants, sanitary measures can also spark concern. One misstep, a single employee failing to properly clean a piece of equipment, could allegedly compromise thousands of pounds of product. Some factories tout advanced sterilization technologies, from ultra-hot steam jets to chemical dips, designed to kill pathogens before they spread. Critics argue that these methods sometimes mask underlying problems. If the raw ingredients aren't pristine to begin with, you can't simply clean your way back to safety. Then there's the question of pink slime, that infamous filler rumored to be used in certain processed meats. Although the term pink slime became mainstream years ago, some suggest that variants of it might still quietly appear in meats across global markets. The concept: mix in a lean, finely textured protein that's been chemically treated to kill bacteria, then market it as standard ground beef or pork. Consumers never realize that a portion of what they're eating wasn't exactly choice to start with. Supporters of large-scale factories say these processes merely make use of every part of the animal, preventing waste and lowering costs. Critics argue that cost reduction is taking precedence over transparency and authenticity. In truth, both sides might have valid points. It's complicated. On the one hand, minimizing waste is good. On the other, calling something fresh or premium while blending older inventory and filler is arguably misleading. All of these details bring us to a perplexing question. How much do we really know about the journey our meat takes before landing on our dinner plates? Labels like Grade A, all natural, or no additives might only be half-truths. Sure, there are regulations in place, but the intricacies of what's allowed remain hazy to consumers. The next time you see bright red cuts in the grocery display, consider how the color might be artificially enhanced, or how it might be the result of well-timed processing that merges fresh portions with older material. Yet, as unsettling as these revelations can be, this is only one corner of the industry's labyrinth. The real intrigue often lies in how a single product morphs into an array of flavors and specialties, all thanks to the wonders and occasional controversies of blending and spicing. But brace yourself, because once we lift the lid on mystery spice mixes and additives, you might never reach for that pre-seasoned pack of sausages the same way again. The aroma of sizzling meat coated in tantalizing herbs and spices is enough to make almost anyone's mouth water. Factories know this, and they invest heavily in finding the perfect formulas to transform ordinary protein into a feast for the senses. Behind closed doors, entire departments are dedicated to flavor science, mixing, testing, and refining secret recipes. Sometimes it's not just about taste. The right color, the right mouthfeel, and the right texture all matter deeply. What gets less attention, however, are the hidden additives sprinkled into these blends. While recognized seasonings like pepper, garlic, and paprika appear on labels, you might also notice ambiguous phrases such as natural flavor or spice extract. Experts in the field say these general terms can cloak a range of substances that enhance, stabilize, or amplify certain flavors. In a world where manufacturers compete fiercely for brand loyalty, that extra dash of something can make a product stand out, or leave consumers guessing about the actual contents. Controversy arises when these unnamed additives drift toward chemical flavor boosters. Sometimes, factories allegedly rely on MSG or other enhancers, which they may or may not list in a transparent manner. Although regulatory bodies have guidelines for labeling, critics argue that the rules have enough loopholes to allow broad terms like seasoning mix to conceal a variety of lesser-known ingredients. Some individuals claim they experience sensitivities to these hidden chemicals, fueling an ongoing debate over their safety. It doesn't stop at chemicals. In certain regions, factory workers talk quietly of flavor recycling, where leftover marinade from one batch is skimmed, filtered, and reused in another. Proponents argue it's environmentally friendly and economical not to waste perfectly good seasoning. Opponents worry about cross-contamination and wonder whether repeated cycling might affect the quality or safety of the final product. Officially, factories maintain that all reconstituted seasoning meets sanitation standards, but the notion can still raise a skeptical eyebrow. The blending process itself is like a choreography. Workers and machines feed measured amounts of spices and ground meats into massive mixers that turn at specified speeds and intervals. When the timing is off, or the ratio doesn't match the recipe exactly, entire batches can come out tasting odd or weak. This is where quality control steps in. Repeated test cooks, tasting sessions, and chemical analyses. In some plants, a new line won't be approved for mass production until a panel of in-house tasters gives the green light. At a glance, this rigorous approach seems reassuring. Yet there's a flip side. In the quest for consistency, some factories might overcompensate with stabilizers or fillers, ensuring each package tastes uniform no matter what day it's produced. While it sounds convenient for brand recognition, it often means you're biting into a product that's been systematically engineered to taste the same from coast to coast, with little nuance left from the original ingredient. It's one reason certain connoisseurs claim mass-produced sausages, hams, or deli meats lack the authenticity found in local butcheries. They might have a point. Real differences in the meat's natural flavor can disappear under layers of science-driven blending. It's less about artistry and more about a factory formula that must deliver the same bite every time. Once that blend is perfected, factories shift to volume production, churning out rolls of spiced meat by the minute. But if you think the story ends here, get ready to be surprised. The next piece of the puzzle involves what actually holds everything together: the casing. If you find the idea of reusing marinade unsettling, just wait until you hear the behind-the-scenes details of how those natural casings are cleaned, soaked, and transformed. You might think you've learned all the secrets about seasoning, but the real shocker is coming up, the moment we enter the realm of casings, where the lines between tradition, efficiency, and squeamishness get very blurry indeed. Whether you adore snappy sausage links or prefer them in patty form, the casing that hugs the meat can often raise eyebrows. Many brands proclaim natural casing on their packaging as if it's a delightful nod to old-school craftsmanship. But for some consumers, discovering that natural can mean actual animal intestines is a deal-breaker. Indeed, the majority of natural casings come from pigs, sheep, or cows, processed meticulously until they become almost transparent tubes ready to be filled with ground meat and spices. The process starts with thorough cleaning. Intestines are stripped, rinsed, and soaked multiple times to remove any residue or lingering odor. Factories typically store them in heavily salted water to maintain freshness and prevent bacterial growth. According to some accounts, it's not unusual for these casings to travel across continents, moving from slaughterhouses in one country to processing facilities in another, before landing at sausage factories around the globe. Such a circuitous journey leaves room for potential slip-ups in handling or shipping conditions. One big sticking point is cleanliness. Are these casings washed enough? Industry representatives swear by stringent protocols, claiming each batch is tested and sanitized to a fault. Still, a handful of whistleblowers claim that large orders sometimes get expedited without the same level of scrutiny, especially if there's a looming deadline or if the buyers specifically request faster turnaround. This is where the clash between tradition and modern efficiency emerges. In smaller traditional shops, casings might be processed and used fairly quickly, with a butcher personally inspecting and trimming them. In large-scale plants, an assembly line approach keeps everything swift and standardized. Critics question whether it's possible to maintain the same level of care. Advocates, on the other hand, emphasize advanced sterilization technologies and argue that the modernization of the process ensures uniform quality, perhaps even more so than in smaller operations. Ethical questions also loom. Some consumers have no qualms with animal-based casing, others feel squeamish. A good portion of the market has gravitated toward collagen casings or even cellulose variants to sidestep the entire issue. But ironically, even those alternatives stir debate. Collagen casings often come from processed hides or bones, while cellulose versions use plant-based materials that might involve chemical treatments. So is it truly more ethical or natural? It depends on who you ask. Interestingly, certain manufacturers quietly use a combination of casings, a hybrid approach where natural casings might be supplemented with sections of collagen or cellulose to patch holes or keep up with large orders. The final product is sold as a natural casing sausage if more than half is natural. Consumers rarely realize they might be eating a blend of materials. It's not deceptive per se. Factories say they're following labeling guidelines, but it's definitely not something you'll see advertised. Another less talked about aspect is sustainability. Intestines would otherwise be waste material if not used for casings. In that sense, turning them into sausage casings is arguably more eco-friendly than discarding them. But once again, it's complicated. The shipping, storage, potential bleaching, or sterilizing chemicals might offset that environmental benefit. By now, you might be thinking, okay, so the casings are a bit gross, but that's the price of authenticity, right? Possibly. Yet we're only scratching the surface. Once the meat blend is stuffed into those casings, a new step commences. The smoky, often aromatic process that gives sausages their final flourish. This next stage might seem simple, but it has its own controversies around chemicals, preservation, and the ephemeral line between flavor enhancement and artificial tampering. So hold on, the real heat is about to be turned up. Once we crack open the secrets of the smoking process, you'll see just how cleverly factories juggle taste and longevity. There's something mesmerizing about a perfectly smoked sausage. That rich, savory scent and a browned exterior that promises depth of flavor. Smoking traditionally was a way to preserve meat in times when modern refrigeration didn't exist. Nowadays, it's both a culinary technique and a marketing tool. Factories tout authentic hardwood smoking or mesquite-infused flavor, conjuring images of age-old smokehouses. Behind the scenes, though, the picture might be different. At its simplest, smoking involves hanging or laying meats in a chamber filled with wood smoke. The composition of that smoke, hickory, applewood, or even a special blend, determines the final flavor. But in high-volume operations, time is money. Some producers rely on liquid smoke, a condensed product derived from burning wood chips. This liquid can be sprayed or injected into the meat, drastically speeding up the process. Supporters say it's real smoke in liquid form. Detractors call it a cheap shortcut that's nowhere near the complexity of true smoking. There's also the matter of chemicals within the smoke. Genuine wood smoke contains compounds that act as preservatives, which is one reason smoke products often last longer. But these compounds, like phenols and formaldehyde, can raise health concerns if levels are too high. Factories maintain that they monitor exposure levels carefully to ensure safety. Still, the potential presence of these chemicals has fueled debate over how regularly we should consume heavily smoked foods. Another layer of controversy emerges with so-called smoke coloring. Certain products are labeled smoke-flavored, but might not have seen a minute inside a genuine smoke chamber. Instead, they're treated with a coloring agent or a flavor injection. For budget sausages, a smoke-colored ring around the edges might simply be a dye. Some consumers never notice because they're already used to the idea that anything labeled smoked must be hearty and legitimate. Those big stainless steel smoking chambers inside enormous factories can process thousands of links at once, speeding through cycles in a fraction of the time traditional smoking requires. Proponents say it's a testament to modern efficiency. Everyone can enjoy uniform, high-quality smoked meat without waiting days for slow-curing methods. Critics respond that it's turning an ancient craft into a flavor assembly line, flattening nuances, and possibly using extra additives to achieve a standard taste in minimal time. Shelf life is the real elephant in the room. Smoking, in combination with certain salts and nitrates, can keep meat products shelf-stable for significantly longer. Some argue that this is beneficial, cutting down on waste and ensuring consumers have plenty of time to enjoy their purchases. Others worry that cranking up nitrates might come with health risks. Many reports have linked high nitrate consumption to potential problems, although the research remains complex. The big question is whether factories push the line, using nitrates less as a small stabilizer and more as a heavy-handed preservative. If you're beginning to suspect that there's a trade-off at every stage, between tradition and speed, between authentic flavor and cost-saving hacks, between minimal additives and extended shelf life, you're absolutely right. The deeper you dig, the more you see an industry locked in a balancing act. And meat is just the tip of the iceberg. Get ready to step away from the smokehouse and into the world of milking stations. Because once we pivot to dairy, we'll see that controversies don't stop with brine casings or color injections. In fact, the pursuit of efficient milk production might be even more complicated and far more emotive, given it involves living, breathing animals around the clock. Brace yourself if you've ever pictured a peaceful cow contentedly grazing in a meadow. You might be in for an awakening when it comes to large-scale, automated milking operations. Cows lined up at dawn for hand milking by a friendly farmhand in overalls. That's the classic pastoral image many of us grew up with. Modern dairy factories, however, are more like high-tech, streamlined operations. Rows of cows enter mechanized parlors on conveyor systems, guided by electronic ID tags. In seconds, milking attachments latch onto the udders automatically, guided by sensors and computer algorithms that gauge milk flow. It's a system designed for maximum efficiency, but it leaves plenty of room for debate over animal welfare and product integrity. One major point of contention is the use of hormones or hormone-like substances that can stimulate higher milk production. While these substances are banned or restricted in some countries, others allow them under specific guidelines. Critics argue that routine hormone use can stress the cows, impacting their health and potentially affecting the milk's nutritional profile. Factories often deny over-reliance on such measures, emphasizing that regular testing ensures no residue in the final product. Still, the conversation about whether it's ethically or biologically safe isn't going away. Then there's the issue of antibiotics. When a cow gets sick, especially with mastitis, antibiotics are commonly used to clear up infection. In responsible dairies, that cow's milk is discarded until the treatment course is finished and the drug fully clears the system. But some insiders whisper that not all operations follow these protocols to the letter. Allegedly, certain facilities pressed to meet quotas might blend the milk from antibiotic-treated cows with the main supply, diluting any trace. That's a big no-no in terms of regulations, yet enforcement can be challenging on massive farms. Critics also point to living conditions. In large-scale setups, cows might be penned in close quarters, walking on concrete rather than soft pasture. Proponents say these facilities provide consistent access to food, shelter, and veterinary care, leading to healthy, high-yield animals. Opponents note that healthy doesn't necessarily mean happy, and that constant indoor living can lead to leg problems, stress, and other complications for the animals. Some also question the free-range or pasture-raised labels if the cows only spend a fraction of their time outdoors. On the consumer end, milk from these gigantic plants arrives in neat cartons at your local store, pasteurized and homogenized. Pasteurization kills bacteria, homogenization keeps the fat evenly distributed. Both processes are standard in many countries, but raw milk enthusiasts claim these steps degrade natural flavors and beneficial enzymes. Factories counter that safety must come first. And given the scale of production, a single contamination could harm countless people if left unchecked. All told, the net effect is that you get a consistent supply of affordable milk products, but not without trade-offs. If you prioritize cost and quantity, modern dairy might be your best friend. If you care deeply about how cows spend their days, or if you prefer minimally processed milk, the scene can be sobering. And yet, milk is just one stepping stone on our dairy adventure. The next, arguably more enticing, is cheese. Few foods inspire as much devotion as a well-crafted mozzarella or cheddar. But just like the sausages we explored earlier, cheese has its own labyrinth of controversies, especially when it's pumped out by the ton in mega factories. So let's head straight to the heart of cheese country, where the line between artisanal tradition and industrial might is often blurred. Mozzarella, soft, white, and delightfully stretchy when melted, lies at the core of countless dishes worldwide. And for many, the fresh, milky essence of mozzarella signals purity. But how pure is the production process in factories racing to meet the never-ending global demand for pizza cheese? A typical day in a large cheese factory begins with tankers hauling in vast quantities of milk. Industrial pasteurizers subject the milk to high heat, eliminating microbes but sometimes affecting flavor compounds. Next, enzymes like rennet kickstart the coagulation process, causing the milk to separate into curds and whey. This step is fundamental, but here's where the craft can get a little tricky. If a factory wants to expedite the process, they might rely on potent enzyme cocktails that speed up curd formation in record time. Critics question whether hyper-accelerating things sacrifices flavor or texture. When those curds form, giant mechanical arms or rotating knives slice them into consistent pieces. In smaller artisanal dairies, a cheesemaker might wield a cutting tool by hand, judging the size and feel carefully. But in large-scale operations, uniformity is paramount. The curds are then heated, stretched, and shaped, usually by machines capable of producing thousands of identical mozzarella balls or blocks in an hour. Efficiency is undeniable, though connoisseurs might say it lacks the soul that comes from hands-on techniques. Salt is a key element in cheesemaking, preserving flavor and prolonging shelf life. Some factories soak curds in heavily salted brine solutions. Others knead salt directly into the cheese. While necessary to an extent, salt usage can become excessive if the goal is to offset weaker base flavors. Oversalted cheese might initially taste robust, but it can mask a lower quality milk source or rushed process. Once again, it's all part of that balancing act. How to churn out consistent cheese at maximum volume without losing taste or stability. On to the topic of aging. Traditional cheeses develop complexities over weeks, months, or even years. Mozzarella is often consumed fresh, but some variants are aged briefly to enhance flavors. Large factories have introduced methods to shorten or even bypass aging by applying special bacterial cultures or chemical ripening agents. Proponents tout it as innovative, ensuring you get a sliceable, stable product in record time. Skeptics fear this engineered approach stifles the natural development of flavor and texture, resulting in cheese that's more about uniform melt factor than artisanal character. One especially murky area: cheese product versus real cheese. The words cheese product or processed cheese often appear on packaging, indicating the item contains cheese, plus other ingredients like emulsifiers, extra flavors, or milk substitutes. Some manufacturers blur the line, marketing something as mozzarella-style cheese that might be part dairy, part oils, and part synthetic stabilizers. It melts okay, but the taste and nutritional value can differ significantly from pure mozzarella. Even storage is strategic. Once a batch is complete, factories vacuum seal or plastic wrap it before refrigeration or freezing. That's how cheese travels across international borders, sometimes sitting for months before hitting a store shelf. Over time, that vacuum-sealed environment can alter the cheese's texture, sometimes making it denser or rubbery. Though not always a health concern, it's far from the fresh, delicate mozzarella carefully crafted in a local creamery. To be fair, mass-produced cheese isn't automatically bad. It's tested for safety, it's convenient, and it's priced so the average consumer can enjoy it. But it's essential to realize that what we're often eating might be worlds apart from the artisanal ideals we romanticize. Now, if you think we've already encountered enough shocking truths about how food is manufactured, hold on. Because next, we venture into the candy and popsicle realm, where vibrant colors and sugary flavors may conceal an equally colorful set of controversies. So keep your appetite. Just remember that the sweet treats awaiting us might not be as innocent as you believe. Brightly colored popsicles, chewy candies, and gummy treats might transport us back to childhood with a single taste. Yet behind those rainbow hues and fun shapes often lie some surprising manufacturing twists. Factories pump out these sugary delights at a staggering pace, with one line alone capable of producing tens of thousands of pieces per hour. The volume is mind-boggling, and so is the complexity of what goes into them. Artificial colors have long been a source of controversy. Some are derived from petroleum, while others might come from insects or lab-created chemical compounds. Research has pointed to potential side effects in children, including hyperactivity or allergic reactions, although not everyone agrees on the severity. Regulators require these colors to be listed on packaging, but many consumers skim right past the likes of Red 40 or Yellow 5. Manufacturers argue that these colors are essential for visual appeal and brand recognition. After all, who wants a gray popsicle? Flavoring follows a similar pattern. Fruit-flavored candies often contain little to no real fruit, relying instead on nature-identical essences. Some factories experiment with advanced flavor-binding molecules that can intensify sweetness or sourness beyond what standard sugar can achieve. Ever wonder why some candies seem supercharged in taste? It's partly because these lab-grown flavors are designed to flood your taste receptors quickly, giving the sensation of an amplified flavor burst. The candy base itself can be a sticky mix of sugar, glucose syrup, and gelatin. Depending on the product, gelatin might originate from animal collagen, leading to concerns among vegetarians or certain religious groups. To meet diverse consumer demands, a subset of factories produce vegan or halal-friendly versions using plant-based gelling agents like agar or pectin. However, these specialized treats often come at a higher price, prompting many mainstream brands to stick with the cheaper, more traditional option. Then there's the question of how these sweets retain their shape. Hard candies, gummies, and popsicles often require stabilizers or thickening agents, like modified starches or gums, that keep them from melting into a sticky puddle on store shelves. Manufacturers see this as a necessity for shipping and longer shelf life. Critics say it's one more sign of how processed these treats are. Some even wonder if those indefinite best-before dates result from so many preservatives that the product is practically embalmed in sugar. If we switch gears slightly to ice pops, the story is similar. The bright, flashy colors rarely come from real fruit juice alone. Even brands touting "made with real fruit juice" might only contain a small percentage. The rest might be sweeteners, stabilizers, and colorants. A big batch of popsicle mix is churned in giant vats until smooth, then poured into molds that run along a conveyor belt. After a brief freeze, they pop out, get a protective plastic sleeve or wrapper, and off they go to a freezer near you. Are these confections dangerous? Probably not in moderation, but the presence of heavily processed ingredients can cause concern about long-term health effects, especially for children who consume them regularly. Of course, the candy industry counters that sugar is sugar, and any treat is meant to be consumed responsibly. Now, as mesmerizing and possibly unsettling as these sweet production lines can be, they're not the only fast food favorite that deserves a second look. Think about convenience foods, especially frozen or pre-packaged meals. They're a staple in busy homes worldwide. For a prime example, we have to explore the realm of ready-to-eat pizzas and other quick, microwavable, or oven-baked wonders that line supermarket freezers. In the next section, we'll lift the curtain on these popular time-saving heroes that might come with more than just tomato sauce and cheese. Frozen pizza has become synonymous with quick comfort. You pop it out of the box, toss it in the oven, and voila, a no-fuss meal. Yet the story of how that pizza gets made involves more than just dough, sauce, and cheese. Factories churn out crusts by the thousands, forming and par-baking them on automated lines. Once cooled, these crusts might wait in storage while sauce is prepared in towering kettles. Recipes vary, but tomato paste, sugar, salt, oils, and seasoning powders often meet thickening agents that give the sauce a uniform consistency. Cheese is another area ripe for cost-saving tactics. Real dairy cheese is pricey, so some brands turn to cheese blends that mix actual mozzarella with cheaper oil-based products. By using the right colorants and flavor additives, it can be hard to tell the difference visually. The key is the melt factor. Real cheese tends to bubble and brown, while a cheese-like topping might just turn oily and translucent. If you've ever baked a pizza and noticed a peculiar sheen on top, you might have run into a cheese substitute. Pepperoni, sausage, or other toppings often undergo similar transformations as the sausages and deli meats we previously examined. They can be loaded with nitrates or colored with artificial red dyes to maintain that bright, appetizing look, even after freezing. Factories package them in measured quantities, sometimes mixing real meat with plant-based extenders to cut costs. By the time you open the box, each slice is meticulously arranged, and you'd never suspect it might be padded with textured soy protein or other fillers. Preservatives are essential in these products, given that they might sit in a freezer for months or even a year. Consumers appreciate the convenience, but rarely do they stop to think what keeps the crust from becoming stale or the sauce from souring. Labeling laws require transparency about certain ingredients, yet the fine print can be dizzying. Words like modified food starch, dough conditioners, and flavor enhancers blend into a single block of text that most buyers don't read carefully. Beyond pizza, many pre-cooked meals follow a comparable pattern. Bulk production, flash freezing, and vacuum packaging allow them to be shipped worldwide. The affordability and speed make them a lifesaver for busy families. But some suspect that the relentless drive for efficiency inevitably compromises nutritional value and authenticity. If your macaroni and cheese dinner can last a year in the freezer, how many stabilizers, gums, or preservatives did it take to make that happen? Critics warn that over-reliance on such foods can dull our palates to genuinely fresh ingredients and homemade cooking. Meanwhile, companies argue they're meeting the demands of a fast-paced society. They also highlight innovations, like lines of premium or organic frozen meals made with fewer additives. The catch: premium lines often come with premium prices, leaving the most affordable options laden with cost-saving measures that might not be as wholesome. And so, we circle back to a recurring theme. Choices made for efficiency and profit can overshadow authenticity and transparency. Whether it's freshly processed meat, natural casings, swiftly smoked sausages, high-yield dairy, artificially ripened cheese, bright candies, or pre-cooked pizzas, the story rarely differs. You might still enjoy these products, perhaps even more once you know how they're made. Or you might be swayed to dig deeper, check labels, and seek alternatives. Which brings us to a final question. Now that we've peeled back the curtain on so many everyday foods, how do we make sense of it all? Let's stitch everything together in our concluding thoughts. Throughout this journey, we've seen that what goes on in factories isn't always diabolical or unhealthy. Sometimes it's just a practical response to feeding millions of people as quickly and cheaply as possible. Yet, with practicality come compromises. Older meat might be blended into fresh ground, chemical brines and colorants might stand in for time-honored smoking or aging, and flavors can be replicated or enhanced far beyond what nature intended. It might leave you questioning the labels that promise all natural, fresh, or authentic. Are these words always backed by transparent processes, or are they occasionally smoke and mirror marketing tactics? The best takeaway is a balanced skepticism. Knowing how the system works helps you make choices that align with your values, whether that's choosing local, supporting truly free-range farming, or indulging in that convenient frozen pizza when life gets hectic. Ultimately, the question remains, will you see your favorite foods in the same light after everything you've discovered? Perhaps this information will spark curiosity to dig deeper, to taste more carefully, or to ask more questions before filling your cart. Whatever your decision, the real power lies in being informed. Armed with knowledge, you can savor each bite, knowing exactly what goes into it and why it matters. Bon appetit, and don't be afraid to read the fine print the next time you shop.